Hello everyone, I'm back with another tutorial. In this one we are building this DeFi application landing page for a product that looks very modern. It uses all the gradients that are commonly used in Web3 crypto space. So here we have a header, a hero section, followed by callouts to the social media, then some important metrics. In this tutorial, we're gonna learn how to do different kinds of gradients, not only the background one, but also, as you can see, there would be borders and even some text with linear gradients. Also, this data, we're also gonna learn how to fetch from the API, and this data is actually fetched, and we'll use CoinGecko API for that. Then further on, we're going to create also reusable React components, for example, this card. And in this tutorial, we're not using any CSS library, it's just vanilla CSS. I think some of the things here or color palette is very reusable, so we don't really need to. Then again, social media section followed by this blog section. Also important to mention that the website is fully responsive, and during the tutorial, I'll provide some important design tips so you can use them during your future projects. And final thing to mention during this, the web will build a mobile menu that has this a responsive overlay for the mobile screen. So I'm very excited for this tutorial, and let's get started coding. We navigate into the folder where we want to create our application, and we type npx create React app and the name of the application. So I'll call this DeFi app React. It would start downloading all the packages and creating the project for us. Once the app's ready, as it says on here, we cd into the app. So React DeFi app React, and then run npm start. That should start our app in development mode. So here's our app, and let's quickly go over the folder structure. In source is where all our code is going to be. App.js is the main file, root of the project, and then app.css is where all our styles are going. So let's get started from app.js. I'm gonna remove all this extra code in here, and for the class name we can say home, and get started with some of the basic stylings in app.css. I'm gonna move this and also open the app so you guys can see what is changing. So let's remove all this, and first thing I always do is add a box sizing border box to everything. And next, let's modify home, which is the main class. It wraps everything. First, I want to set background. This is going to be linear gradient, and I'm gonna paste the colors that I have here. So it's gonna be on 180 degrees, so horizontal, and then this you can see are the two colors. Let's do line height 38 pixels. Font weight is going to be 600. Default font size 125 rem, and then color for the good contrast we're gonna set it as white. Set the width to 100%, same thing for the height. And display flex direction would be column, so all our elements are aligned columns. Justify content, stay with me, we might not need it, and align items center. Even after setting the background and width and the height, it still shows up as white because the parent container of the home is actually body, which is the same in every website regardless if it's React or not. And then React also in index.js adds this another container which has like ID of root. So let's target both of them and set their width and height also to 100 so we can stretch out our home. Ideally, we would not need that like after we add the components because they should take up the space. But for now, for visibility to fill out the background, let's do that. And height 100 view age, that is the view height available on the screen. And let's save this. Okay. Now let's jump right into creating a header for our website that we're going to place it at the top. So as if you've been following my tutorials, I for the components create like separate folder in the source. If it's like if we have more than 2 or 3 components, it's best practice to do so. And inside new file header.jsx, and let's move this for a bit. And this extension that lets me create arrow function exported files automatically. Let's save this and we're gonna do more work on it, but first let's import it here so that we don't forget later on and place it in here. So once we're ready to test, finish with our code, it would be automatically, it will show up on our page. Okay, so we get started with the main container, that is header container, just given a class name for the styling later on. And then this would contain, I guess, 3 sections. First one would be logo. In the middle, we're gonna have a menu, and then at the end, we're gonna have a button. So let's create these 3 sections, logo, and then this would be menu, and the wallet button. And inside here, let's say token swap maybe is the logo for menu. Let's create another div class name menu links. And here we're gonna list all our links. For now, href would just default back to the home page since we don't have any pages. 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5. That should be sufficient. App, products, build, careers, oops, and about. And in the wallet, we're gonna create a button that says enter app. Let's just make sure that this shows up here. Yeah, as you can see, now we can do styling in here. So just moving this out, getting started with header container. This is parent container, and here we have to think, how do we want to align our like children elements? So first we would set display flex, and then width of this would be 100%. We want it to stretch out all the way, and adding some padding, 20 pixel vertically and then 40 pixels horizontally. Next, what we want to align is, let's first save this. So now we have the correct flex direction. And now let's do the menu links. As you can see, they're all like together in here. So let's go ahead and fix that. Header container, menu. Once again, display flex, justify content, we can say center, and flex of this like container itself would be 1. As for the links, we can set the margins here so they're not too close to each other. Menu links A, and let me push this up so you guys can see the code in the center. Margin 12 pixels. So color of this should be FFF, and text decoration none. And as a matter of fact, we can do the same text decoration. It's always good to think about on every link. We don't want the underline. So let's set this both for all the links going forward. Now for the button, we're gonna in general have two kinds of buttons. One would be like with a gradient background, one would be white, but with a text that has gradient color. So first let's create the general like paddings and settings so we can just reuse the styles throughout the application. So border reduce the both type. I'm just declaring what both types would share now. Padding 10 pixels, 20 pixels, border none, and text transform uppercase. So now let's go ahead with the primary. Color of the text would be white, and then the background would be linear gradient, and I have the two colors. I need to copy them because there's no way I'm gonna remember those colors. And as always, if you wanna check them out, there would be a GitHub link in the description of the video. So go ahead and do that. And in header.js, we need to add a class name. This would be primary. Okay, so background. Actually, I did start. Okay. I don't know why I moved on for index.js, but let's keep it consistent and just put all the code in the app. CSS, sorry about it, doesn't really make a difference where you put it, but I want to make sure it's okay. So background linear gradient, it's not showing up. Oh, I have the double T in here. That was a mistake when I was copying. All right. If you have noticed, a lot of Web3 applications have this enter app button at the top. So what this does is for you to enter the application and to communicate with either the chain where it's deployed at, you need to connect your wallet, and very common solution of this is usually MetaMask. We're not going to cover this in this tutorial because this is just the React side, like front-end side of the tutorial, but if you're interested, let me know in the comments and I'm definitely happy to make one. But if you have used any other apps and if you have stored the keys to your wallet, you know that if you lose your keys, it's very like almost impossible to recover any of your NFTs, assets, or etc. It's important to have a strong password manager where you can have it on any device you want, anywhere you go. That way, if, for example, something gets deleted from your device, you still have access to all your assets, digital assets, or literally contains your wealth. So I use Nordpass for all my important keys and passwords. Nordpass is also a sponsor of the video, so if you use code WebDecoded, you can get started today with a 3-month free trial. And I'll also show, this is the example of some of the passwords that I have. Here is my MetaMask. I also have it stored in my like so-called crypto folder, so that way my passwords, my important information is organized. So I do have other folders, for example, nodes app project, where this folder is actually shared. I can easily share also passwords with my teammates. And one very important thing when it comes to your data is that you know where, if there's any breach happening. So this tool right here, the data breach scanner, can actually scan your information and see if there has been any breach, so you can take action immediately before any like damage actually happens. So check out today, and the link would also be in the description with the code. And going back to the tutorial now. We are moving on to the hero section, and this is one of the most important sections and the first section that users see when they land on your page. So let's make sure to get that right. In components, create a new file, hero section, and let's close this out, save it, and also import that below our header. So in hero section, we're gonna have starting off with like two main sections. That would be the information text on the right side, and then on the left side, on the right side, we're gonna have image. So let's remove this text and give the main container class name. That would be hero section container, and let's create the two classes now for the sections that I mentioned. Div class name hero info wrapper, and below this would be hero image container. So let's add with the header, and we're gonna wrap our text into this container. Text T. So outside, and then H1 tag, the decentralized. Cross-chain exchange, and I would like to have this highlighted, so let's put this in here, and class name equals highlighted, and let's do the styling for highlighted. But that would be any span that has this class would have a background of linear gradient, and this is the same gradient that we used on the primary button here. Let's set some border radius 5 pixel and padding 0, 10 pixels. And let's make sure this, I'm missing H in here. Yep. Now some description. I'm gonna paste in the dummy text, P, class name, hero, info, description. And let's move this up for bigger space. And we're also gonna have like a search text afterwards. So the fact that this is getting displayed below the page, we're gonna set some flex also on the main container, so that would be updated. And let's get working on the input. So class name, search, input, wrapper. We're gonna use an icon. Class name would be search. As for the source, I have the icons inside the assets folder. As we go along, I'm gonna add more icons. You can get the full list either from the GitHub, or I'm gonna try to include separate zip for it so you can just download them. But in this case, we're gonna need, let's import search from assets search.svg. And so the source of this would be, we can just pass in like this, and we need the alternate name, search. Okay. Command B. Then comes our input, class name, search input. Let's also set a placeholder. That would be search this many tokens across 9 chains. We close out the input here. And after this, we have a submit button. So button, class name, search. Let's set this primary so we have the gradient background as well. And span, class name, maybe like start swapping, and the name of the button. Below this, we also have a social like links container. So this would go in here. Let's create a new class, social links container, and class for the links itself, social links. Now I'm gonna import the icons, and then in React you can also import SVGs as an icon component. It's React component itself. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. React component as Telegram icon, and then we indicate the path. This is in assets icons folder. It's called Telegram. This should be not the period but this, and .svg. And trying to copy this. We are gonna have a few more. So this would be Twitter. Let's have YouTube. And finally Discord. Okay, now let's see how we can display them. So we can list them as, so they are gonna be links, href, where in here you'd add the link to your social media and import as a React component. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can do the same for all the others. YouTube icon, Discord. So you're probably already watching this on YouTube. You know what my channel is. If you're enjoying this video or any other tutorials have been helpful for you, please like and subscribe. It really helps with the channel to grow. Also, we do have a Discord. The link to the Discord server is in the description of this video as any other video, so you can find it, join it, ask if there's any questions, suggest topics for the next projects, and just get to know other developers. So make sure to check it out. Now let's move on to our image container, and for that I also need to import the image for that one. That would be hero SVG. So let's import that. Import hero from so let's see if we have search. We can't find, oh, it's inside the icons folder, but let's check that everything is showing up as they should be. This is before the styling, and now let's add the image. So we have the container, the div, and then image, class name, hero, img. This would be source equals hero, and then text equals, we can just say like blockchain because it kind of like looks like chains and currencies. So make sure that it's getting displayed, and now we move on to the styling. So first, as usual, we do the main container. So to give it like some kind of shape, and let's set font weight 500. Our text is going to be big on this one. Line height 23 pixels. Width, we're going to set this to 95%. Now display flex. Flex direction is going to be row and justify content space in between, so they stretch out on the ends of the container. Align items, stretch, and then align self would be flex end. Now inside hero section container, we do have hero info wrapper, our like first container on the left. So that one, let's set the height of this to 80% of the total component. This would also be display flex. In this case, flex direction would be column because we have text like stack over another text, and then the input just by content we can do space between, align items, stretch, and then flex spaces. We want this to take up a little less than half of the whole like width, so 75% should be okay. And let's see if we would need anything else. Okay, now we're gonna update maybe like line height of this. So let's do maybe like 38. Okay. And hero section container, info text, just the H1, let's make it more bolder. So font weight in general we set it to 600, let's make this 700. Font size, we're gonna also increase it, and I think the line height of this one can be significantly like bigger. Is it too big? Now just for all paragraphs, let's change the color. So I'm gonna set that to this color here. CH should have copied it, it would be easier. And then font size by default would be 1.5 rem. Gonna add some margins in here for the description. So hero section container, hero info, for description. Hopefully that's not too small, so just margin bottom, so we separated from the input, search input below. And now let's set some classes for the image. That would be just like the sizing, not the info container, but image container. Hero image width 712. height 729, object fit we want cover, and margin top 11 pixels, bottom 9 pixels. Now the search container. So what we want to do with search container is we want to have like the circle here where we have the icon. This is center, it doesn't have this weird white background, and then this button is also lined up all in one row. So let's get started with setting the color first. That would be the same color as the text. And the background color, that would be not any from this one. I'm gonna paste that in. So let's create border, 1 pixel, solid, and then border radius, this is going to be 20 pixels, and in general it's good to like use the same. For example, if this one is 20 pixels, actually I'm using 5 pixels on the button, so it's good to use the same border radius on different components, especially if there's a component outer. So this is design tip of the day, number 1 so far, so that they, you know, match in the angle. So for the button I think I set 5, so I'm going to set 5 for this one as well. Now flex direction, that would be row, and justify content, space between, maybe align items, definitely center. Just a little, maybe like 3 pixels. Line height, we're gonna set it to 29, and I never set display to flex, so let's do that. Okay, getting there. Now we are gonna edit the styling of what's inside the search container, which is like the input element. So search container and then search input wrapper. The display of this would be flex, and then for flex direction we want to have row, also align item center, because right now it's aligned towards the bottom. Let's set flex 1, that's going to stretch out our component, and padding 15 pixels. Going over to hero section, I have a typo, search input wrapper, so let's fix that and continue with our styling. Let's update the input. So color of this would be this purple, light purple that we have. Height would be 100%. Also border, we don't want any of it, and background color transparent. Line height also 29 pixels. As for the font weight, let's set it to 400, and font family would be outfit. Yep, let's save this, and font size, let's set it to 1.125 rem. As for the width, 100%. Okay, that stretches out nicely. Let's update the color of the placeholder, so that would be 2 columns placeholder, and color to the purple. Let's save this, that got updated, great. And now let's make sure that our search button that we have on the right side stretches out the height like full of its parent container, like the box that it's in. So that would be, let's make it flex. Flex direction would be row, and set flex basis as well as justify content center. Items also would be centered. Set the same font size as for the placeholder, also the bigger font weight. And we have line height and padding 15 pixels. That's gonna stretch it out. And let's fix the border radius of 5 pixels, the same as its parent, so it doesn't have these weird gaps around it. So that's how it looks like. We can make few adjustments to some of the sizing here. So for example, let's start with flex spaces, set it to something bigger, 35. So the text stretches out even bigger, and line height, maybe we want something smaller. It's too big, so 30 pixels, that looks better. As for our, like, the text in the hero section, we can make some adjustments for that one as well. So let's make it smaller for the mobile view. So that would be max width 768 pixel. We're going to use media query, and then let's target inside the media query hero section. For flex direction, we're going to set a column. So we want all the two columns that we have right now stacked upon each other. So that white space appears because I believe the width isn't set fully. So let's see. We can modify the line height to normal, so it's not as big as on like smaller screens. And another thing that we can do is update like the font size of H1 itself, because once again, smaller screen size means that it takes up bigger space. So we can do font size 24. And let's target hero info text, because that's how we were using the classes before. And then hero, that's inside hero info wrapper. Okay, so now that got updated. Let's see what else we have here. Maybe like the line height, because it's like too spread out. There's like bigger spaces in between, so setting that to normal will make it smaller, like in the example. And for the search input wrapper, we can take the padding, which right now we have set it to 15 pixels, and make it smaller, maybe like 5. Yep, that looks better. And then for the search container button itself, we can also adjust the padding for it and set it to 5 pixels. So it's more consistent. And one more thing, hero image, we don't want the same sizing that we have as like for bigger screens. So we're gonna adjust that to width 100%. So it's gonna take up the space of the container. Now let's move on to social media icons that was below the search input and make them stack. Also add some margins in between them so they're not too close up. So margin 10 pixels, that should be sufficient. As for the links, A tags, let's set also margin for that, and then update its color and set the color. Let's set it default color to purple, and then on hover, let's make it white so it has like, you know, more effect of it being clickable. So color, setting that to white and using pseudo hover. And links is the, I have tempo here, and now let's go. Yep, that's how it looks like. Let's remove the 100% with width and height on body and root, because now we're at a point where some of our components are longer than the visible screen, so we don't need this anymore. And we can just delete this, save it. Yeah, otherwise here we would have like previously, as if you notice, we had like white border here. Now we'll be fetching data about few coins and displaying them on our application. So for that we'll use CoinGecko API, which is free up to a certain rate limit, but in this case we should be able to use it for free. And this is their API documentation. As you can see, they have different kinds of data that they return regarding coins. First, we will look at the list, pick 2 coins from there, and then we'll use this endpoint to using the ID get like information about the coin that includes name, price, etc. So let's look at the list, and then this the way they have the documentation, it's called Swagger, so you can like try it out directly, and then usually you pass in parameters here, click execute, and then this returns the response. So we can pick any of these two right now and then use them in application. And let's create a container where this data would be stored. A new component, this would be feature 1. So this component will display the 2 coins, but it will also show like swap, that it's possible to swap these coins. We will not actually do the swap functionality, but we would show it as a part of like landing page. So let's get started with the component. And let's copy the tokens here. We're gonna pick OX. So creating a new array that's gonna just include the IDs, and let's pick another one randomly, sort of. I think this looks okay. And let's get started with building out this container. So just giving overall class name, feature, container. Then we're gonna have like an inner one, div class name, swap token container. And this is where our 2 tokens are gonna go, and then below this we're gonna have like a swap button afterwards. But let's first do, so tokens, this is where we're gonna map out the tokens. That map token index. Here right now we can just display token, but then we're gonna create afterwards a component that's gonna take in token, call in CoinGecko API, and fetch the data displayed. So let's move this to also, I'm gonna close this one out, app.js, import, and this goes below here. And start creating the token. So new file, token, let's say card.jsx. Here besides React we need useEffect and useState. useState would be used, that specific hook, for saving the data of coming from the API, and useEffect would be help us trigger when the component is mounted. That's when we make a call to API. So let's first create the state. So constant token data set token data that equals to useState. By default this is null. And when we are calling APIs, there's one more thing we need to take into consideration, the loading state. So is loading set is loading equals useState. Initially it is false. And then this is very important because a lot of people I see make mistakes when they try to call and use data inside the JSX. They get back undefined because first they need to check if it is loading. So I'll show that in a minute as well. So useEffect, and as a dependency, when we pass an empty array, that means the useEffect runs when the component mounts. So that would be equivalent of component did mount. And now we need the endpoints for CoinGecko. So going back to their documentation, this is the URL for Pro API key. So just trying to see what's the URL for the other one. And then this is the endpoint that we're gonna use. Maybe we can just try this one out and it'll show what requests it's making. ID. Let's get, was it 0x? Yeah. Okay. Yes, so this would be it. And this is the data that comes back. So fetch. We pass in the URL and we need the strings for it. And also this token card needs to take ID as props. So this ID will then be used. This is template literal, so you can do something like this, not just the ID. And then we get, response back, and we return response dot JSON. I'm missing a dot after the then. And we can also just test it for now. So once we get the data, we can console log it, make sure it's coming back correctly, and then if there's any, I don't know what's wrong with my autocorrect, I'm not even selecting anything. Okay, if there's any error, why don't we console log the error? And okay, so this also, after this is over, so before this starts, we gotta set is loading to true. And once this is done, set is loading to false. And in here, let's import the token card. And replace this with token card. We don't want this anymore. We just need to pass token as an ID. And not to forget, which I often do, return statement inside the map. Token. Okay, so maybe I'm missing something. Okay. Okay, and then this, instead of we're calling the function JSON, so I missed the parentheses. So we do see the token cards displayed here, just the title of it, but that's not what we're after. We're after the console log to make sure that we're getting the data back. So here it is, we have the Gauche realm and the aux. Now let's back to our application, and first what we're gonna do is that if it's loading, then we're gonna return a container div that says loading, and then if not, then we return our data. So let's wrap first, give a class name that would be token container, and I guess this container is gonna have two sides. So I'm interested in different kinds of data, title, maybe a long title, amount, some kind of some price, also the image. So let's list them out and then see what fits and what's the name of these fields in the API, or data that comes back from the API. So first, div class name, this is token info, and we will have image for the logo. So class name, also let's give this token logo, and source is to be determined. Next up, div class name, token title container. Maybe we can have like an abbreviation at the top, so span token title. title long. This would be filled out and token amount container. Token amount. This one we can just set arbitrarily, maybe like 10 and so this is where we put the price. And I think that's about it. Now let's look at the fields and not this one. CoinGecko. Yeah, this one. And what we can use. So I did say image here somewhere. So image small. Okay. Now something that resembles a title name. That could work. Maybe small description. Or asset platform ID. And then we have price. Not the category, description. Market data, current price, and so current price, and let's get this in USD. Token data, of course. Market data, current price. Okay. And so in here, even though we get the data, we just console log it, we need to set the data. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to access the token data. So let's do set token data. And let's move this set is loading false to inside of when like this is we actually get the data back. And it's always good to check if inside, even though the loading has finished, maybe there's like no data coming back. So always check if the data exists, and then if it does, we take this and display it. Okay, that should be it. And here we have the data that we requested. Now let's go back to feature 1. This is the parent container component of the tokens list, and this would be a 2-column container. So first one would include this card that shows token and gives you ability to swap, and then another one would be just the description with the button below it to like explore more. So let's create, without further ado, that second part. So feature description, and then we have title, for title, I'm gonna use H1 and then I'll highlight the first word. So for highlights, as we already recall, we just apply this highlighted class to the span and wrap the word that needs to be highlighted inside the span. So let's swap any token, any chain. That's that for our title. Now the actual description, this would be paragraph, and I'm gonna paste that in. And after that we'll have a button. You can have either 2 or 1. I guess 1 might be fine. And then button. This would be different button from another's. In this case, we're gonna use a secondary, like a class name. Usually it's variant, and that says start swapping. So let's update the styling for, or like write the styling for the secondary button now. So that would be in app CSS. Let's just put it wherever we had button primaries. So button secondary, first we set the background color to white. And then we need to update the span. So just for setting like gradient, I guess color, not just for any text, this is kind of what we have to do. First thing, we have to set the background image as linear gradient, give it like degrees, and then I'm gonna pick the same colors as we have here. So for these 2 colors, we don't need the percentages. And let's see. So as you can see now, this is the image. This is not what exactly we want, but we want this image to have instead the form, the shape of the text. So basically like text color, right? And then next thing we would do, we would set color of the text transparent. Now the text disappears, but now let's cut it out. That is done by background, clip, and text. Boom, here we have. Okay, let's add one more button here and then we can move on to the styling for this component. So that would be in features 1, and the button would go inside swap token container in here. So let's create separate component, btn container. This one would be primary. Button, class name, primary, and let's say swap. What I'm gonna do for features container, so let's get started with that. So keeping in mind this, we're gonna make it into a 2 column. Let's set the color first, I guess the text, so the text changes here. So width 75%, and then on mobile maybe I'll make like 100% and add some padding to the main container itself, not each single one of them. So anyways, flex direction row, justify content, we want space between, and align items center. Let's add some margin so that the next in the bottom, so the next container is not too close to us. Pixel font weight 400, we don't need as big in here. Line height 21, and we'll display flex, otherwise the flex direction won't work. Margin top, this will be a little bit higher than the bottom, so this one. Now let's move on to the first column in here, which would be swap token containers. So actually color for this one, we want the text to be white. Let's set the height also to 100%, and then background color darker. Let's make it 13130. Border 1 pixel solid. Border radius will make, let's keep it what's same as the button. So let's see, what is the border radius? 10 pixels. Okay, so we're gonna do this 10 pixels as well, following the tip that I shared already. Display flex. Flex direction would be column. Justify content, we want this to space evenly. Align items center. Let's do some padding inside because it would look like a card. We set a border, we set a background color. So let's separate from inner components. Font weight of this one we're gonna increase because we have less text here. And then I think that's it. So now moving on to the list of tokens. So width 90%. Display flex. So this will take up maybe even more space. Let's see how it looks first. Margin. Do we need margin? We already set maybe like few pixels. The padding. And then anything else? Oh, flex direction column. Now each single one of the, well, I mean, we have 2 in total, so containers. Setting the width, background color. This would be, I'm gonna copy it so that I don't get mistaken in any of the numbers. Border radius, same for this one as well, 10 pixels. Not inline flex. So each one will take about half. Justify content. So in between, we do want this space between, because on one side we're gonna have the name and the logo, and on the other side would be the prices and metrics. So why do I keep changing font? Wait, and so padding 20 pixel, 20, and then on one side we have kind of like a tag that's attached to the border, so we don't want any padding on that side. Now let's save this. Okay, so here's what we have so far. I'm not able to move it. So here's what we have so far. We're gonna clean this up more. So this is the text inside it. So height 50%, border radius 0, and then background color. So this will be a little bit darker than everything else, so we can kind of separate it from the rest of the information. Display flex. And then flex basis. And justify content space around. Align item center. Margin, let's set it on the bottom. On the right. So we're gonna have padding left because we want the background color to touch, I guess, the parent container, and then the line height 30 pixels. Okay, so this is it. Now let's do token logo. So let's set the width fixed and height as well. Object fit cover and a little bit of margin left. Okay, not much to change because the sizes of logos are like this, but in case like a huge logo comes back, we need to make sure that it doesn't take up more space that is needed. Did we do token title? Okay, so now time for token title container. So that would be this area in here. So this two, why am I moving? So this would be also display flex. Flex direction column. Justify content, let's like push it up and down, so space between. Margin, top, this will also be 2 pixels, and I think that's about it. Now let's so the title in here we don't have uppercase, so token title container and the title itself, so that would be this abbreviation. Let's make it text transform, uppercase, and then font size, increase it, so 1.5 rem. And now for the longer one, long. Did I spell that right? Okay. So font weight of this, let's make it bigger. The line height doesn't have to be. And then we can make this full width. So that's swap, token, the button itself. So btn container button width 100%. Oh, because we need to make this flex otherwise. Okay. Got it. Swap token container, btn. Let's make this flex. Well, let's do 90 because we did 90 with the other ones. So kind of line. Okay. And then margin, a little bit, margin top. Maybe 5 pixels. Now let's take a look at this. Add some padding, let's stretch this out, change line heights, that would be, and update the color of this. Feature description is the name of our second column. So height, so the other one was a little over 50 something percent. Let's make this 40. Justify content space 2. Now the actual title. Container. And then, so for the paragraph, let's make a bigger line height. So oh great, what happened to the... Okay, I guess this one doesn't have enough space, so let's make this 28. Okay, this is fine. And let's add some margins in between this. So these are token container. I did not add margin yet. Okay. Like 5 pixels. 0. And I'm gonna... This should be... Actually, let's take out the token, these numbers outside of the info. So, okay. Oh, yeah, because this is for once the token data is over. Okay. Now we're gonna move on to the new section of the website. This would be for like metrics section. A lot of product landing pages, especially for startups, crypto, they have this section where they show metrics that are important for them. So let's do daily stats, the JSX, and we're gonna list out a few numbers and then afterwards style them. So let's give this a class name. And we're gonna create a separate class for gradient background and style it so we can later on reuse it. And then div class name metric. So metric, this is going to contain 2 pieces of information, the title and the like a number itself and what the like number means. So swap price, let's say, and then value. And I'm gonna copy paste this maybe like 5 times and update the values. Now let's do some styling for our daily stats containers. So I'm going to just copy this and start it from here. So we do want this flex, the items, the metrics to be displayed in row. We are gonna align them also space evenly since there's like 4 of them, so we want space on the left and right and in between these numbers. Width for 75, just like any other container. The background color a little bit darker than our actual background of the website, and then some font weight, line height. Also, I guess for the mobile view, we can set this flex direction to column actually. So let me do that right now. The screen only and max. I keep forgetting the number. Only screen. Oh. Okay, now moving on to the daily stats container, the metric container inside it. So okay, just setting flex, some padding, and color white. Now moving on to the title. So the color of this would be the light purple that we've been using. Also, we want to make this bold. And font size, let's increase that. Align, cell, flex, and font size for this one even bigger. Sometimes numbers are even more important than the text. So if that's the case, that is what we do. Okay, let's save this and import our daily stats in app.js. So, and let's put this before the feature 1. Okay, that's all, guys. Let's add a little bit more margin to the top, and let's also make the border gradient, and then it will be 2 colors. One is be kind of like greenish blue, and then transparent on the other side. So let's do, what's it? App.css, so daily stats container. Margin top, maybe 20 pixels. We can go 30, I guess. And now, I did say background here, I did mean border. So we first set the background, so it's kind of gonna be background gradient, and then in between another background, that's the color that we actually have. Hopefully that is not too confusing, but you're gonna see that in the code. So let's use the color that is background of our container element. So we have that, and then padding box. Then we have linear dot gradient. This is actually for what we want to the border. So I'm gonna do 2 right, then one side it would be transparent, another side it would be this blue that we were using, and then this would be border box. So there is a difference between padding box and border box, because border box takes the padding as a size into consideration, and then we can say border reduced the same as we set on our element, which was 10 pixels. So background, origin, border box, and then for the background clip, it's gonna be padding box, border box. That's gonna create like a difference, and then border double 1 pixel transparent. Yay! So here's our gradient background. Now let's check if on the mobile view this gets the direction of this flex changes. So yeah, it changes to column now. So one thing that we still have to fix is on the mobile we use this menu, because menu does not fit, so that why it kind of like overflows to the left and pushes everything out. But once we're done with all the other elements, let's take a look at that. So if you have noticed already, we have these two components that have the same kind of darker background and then border linear. So why don't we, and we're gonna have more components like this, so why don't we create a component, card one, which would have all this like styling, and inside we would just pass in like the content itself. So let's open up the code. I'm going to expand this and create a new component here. This would be card. And if you have used like utility libraries, for example, Bootstrap, they also have usually this component. So import React, export constant card. And this could have also some optional props like title, image, URL that would be displayed at the top, and then children. Children would be what would always like show. So return div class name card container. And we need to check if image URL has been passed. If it has, then let's display image source equals like the URL and alternated feature icon. And the title for that would be H1. And last we have the children, which would be the rest of the JSX component code. Okay, let's save this. Now going to the app.js, let's import card. And I created this list of features, which I'm gonna paste here, and then we're gonna map out this list of features. So let's take a look at what this array has. It has source for the image. So for the source, I'm gonna import them at the top. For title, right now it's red because it's not imported. Title, and then the description, and then the description would go as like children. Okay, so I pasted my SVGs, the 3 of them, in here in the assets folder. Once again, this will be on GitHub, and I'll also try to include separate zip one in the description. And I imported the 3 of them here, and we're using them inside this. Now let's take these features and paste them out. So this would go after this. Let's first wrap, before we do that, in some kind of container so we can add some class styling later. So features list container, and in here is where our map should go. Features dot map. We have, oops. Isn't it annoying when you switch in between different sizes of keyboards and now you're used to the other one, so I keep like typing different keys. Okay, so index feature index, and then we have card. We need to pass the key, so React knows this is a unique instance title feature dot title, and then we have image URL, so that would be source. And afterwards, so this is how we pass children in React, right? So feature source, my bad, is we wrapping curly brackets, and then we can, this is like children is like JSX component, so we create paragraph and we say the feature description. Option. Okay, let's save this. It's supposed to update the, okay. Let's move this out. So, and what is this? Card. Okay, so we close this out. Oh, we're missing another one. And the return statement, it has to be wrapped sided. Okay, we can see how does the card look so far. The content is here. Now we gotta move on to the styling. So first we're gonna start off with the card container that would be reused, and then specific styling for the features container that we just created. Okay, so we set a padding so the content is separated from the card, like border. As we mentioned, background color, this will be a little darker than the rest of the body. This would be the main color of the text. Border radius, we want to keep it consistent to the 10, and we added this gradient background, border that we previously created also for the H1. Let's make this white so it differentiates, like the title usually is going to be H1. Now let's do features container. Alright, what you have here, so we're going to use grid to display this as any container. We set the width, this determines how the grids are aligned, and then we want to have gap between grids. This also just text alignment and the width. Let's save this, and okay, so we want like one FR means like one fragment per each column, so we had grid template columns, right? And then another thing to consider here, so this is another design tip. I've read that if, for example, the line is longer than 2 or 3 lines, so for example if our text here is longer, then it's better to, for some reason, display, I don't know why, but I know that it's a standard display, so this title and then the icon would be like centered. This is like in the features usually section, but here since we have, you know, small text, then we align it to the left. Now let's do like a social media callout section, and we're gonna use also this card once again. So in here, new file, social media promotion. New component. Let's import the card at the top. and wrap the content with it in here and give the main class name social media promotion container. And then this card would be divided into two sections. We're not gonna pass any title or anything, just the children. So for children, it has to first have one direct child, so that's why we wrap our two sections into a fragment. And let's start off with class name social media promotion tags, and then another one would be just like a list of icons, which I do need to import them at the top. And header 2. Let's make the first word highlighted, so span and the class name, join, and followed by our community. And this would be a link where you would add the link just to your social media, replace it and put it in this quote. And also here we're gonna have image, source we'll define once we import at the top, and Discord. We'll have 4 of those. And this would be YouTube, white paper, blog. So I added the icons in the assets folder. We did already have icon for Discord, and I imported them at the top of the file, and we'll fill it out now. So I'll just name this YouTube. Paper and blog. Okay. Let's import this here. Add it below. Make sure it gets displayed. Yeah, and let's do some styling. I guess so that we don't have to, right now I picked the social media container, but we have a card inside. I guess improvement would be to also be able to pass the class name to the card, so we don't have to target card 1 next time. Let's see what we have here. Setting the width display, we want this to show up in a row, and we're gonna allocate the space in between, center the items, some padding. I guess the card container already does have a padding, but let's see. Icons, we want them to also be centered and with some margins. The width to this one. And then this one can take up the 100% of its parent. Okay, yep. And here we should have margins. Social media promotion, icons. Oh, it's promotion icons. And I used the wrong icon for Discord. It's supposed to be white and matching the others, so I'm gonna replace that now. So yeah, I added this one here because we were using the other one previously at the top, so I'm gonna replace, it won't come from icons anymore, it would be just Discord 2, and yeah, that's the one. Also, let's add margin top back to our, maybe not this one, but the parent. Now let's add the developer section where we explain about API and show like a few things they can do with it. So dev section .jsx, and I'm gonna import the image that we're gonna use. This would be this one right here, assets dev.svg. Let's remove this. So class name dev section container. Starting off with the title h1. Let's also give this a class name. I'm gonna paste it in content I have done for this one, and so just this and together, last word in this case would be highlighted. Now dev, oops, oh, I just started. Div class name, dev section wrapper. And so this would be on one line, and then we have two parts here. On the left text, on the right text and buttons, and then on the right image. So and this one you probably already know, but it has to like follow the hierarchy. So now I can't use, if this were an H2, I can't use H1 in here, so this would be H2, let's say description, which I'm also going to paste that in. And we have div class name buttons wrapper, and here we're gonna have two buttons, and to differentiate them, since they're gonna be side by side, we're gonna use our two different classes that we have. First one being the primary, and then the second one would be secondary. Span, let's learn more, and here get in touch. Finally, we have an image that would be inside here, but after our first, this one. Okay. And image source equals dev. alt text dev tools, import checkout as displayed, and jump into styling of it. I'm gonna put this before social media promotion. I feel like that's more important than that section. And yeah, it's this one. Let's now do styling. So we have one row here and then another row, 2 columns. Okay, moving on to going to our app.css. So that should line up this on like one column, and then now this is like second column. I mean, sorry, row. And now let's divide the second row. So 50%, this will only on the text side, on the left side will take half of the parent container. Content. Okay, so that should divide up our second row into 2 columns. Now let's do image takes up the space, so let's resize it. Okay, and then let's add the margin in between these buttons. Button, but it's also part of btn wrapper. So next up we have creating a blog section, and for that one we're just gonna display like a image for the blog, title, description, and then kind of image as a thumbnail, and then text overlay. So let's create a new component. And at the top, I'm gonna be using 3 images for this. And let me import them here. 1. So for the blogs, we'll create like cards and display them, and we need to pass data to this card so that So the data would consist of an array that has information about the blog. So what kind of fields do we need? As I mentioned, title, description, and then image URL, which we're gonna use from here. Now let's create like an outer container and then move on to the blog cards itself. So I'll remove this code. And then I have also a tutorial that I am planning to do for a blog website, to create the website itself, to create like post blogs, display them in by like different sections, categories, etc. So watch out for that one. So let's first start with a header, and let's highlight important words to grab users' attention. Us, this could be us, but like usually maybe give a name of your product, and this would be secondary view more. And now below this, where we start our displaying the blogs. So class name, blogs container, and let's create the card itself and then import this here and use it to map it out. So new file, blog card.jsx. So this takes in all the fields that we defined in the array, so description and image URL. So the main thing starting off here would be the image and then the rest of the content. So let's create a wrapper for our image. And the image itself, class name, card image, source, and then the overlay, so image, card, overlay. Let's give it a small header title, so H3. So paragraph for the description. And button class name secondary. Kind of like span, read more. Oops. So here and blogs.map, blog and index. Not to forget the return statement and our new component. Title equals blog dot title. Image URL, and closing out the tag for this. Import it into our app.js. So that would be section. And so here is our, the header, view more, then this is what we have per blog, image, title, description. So what we're going to do is we're going to have one blog on the left and then two on the right, so two per column. But instead of creating different, I guess, containers or anything like that, we're just going to make this happen using CSS grid. So let's see how that's done. App.css, let's start with the most toppest container for blog. Margin at the top. So column, because we want the title to show up, this section to show up first at the top. Now let's move on to the header, see how we can update that. For the header content, we want that to spread out on a row, and justify content space in between. So on the left would be header, on the right button, and I align items center. So yeah, like this. So if you want to position any content inside this as absolute, we need to have the reference container as position relative. And now positioning the image. Object fit cover. Display would be blog, and then height and width we want 100% of its parent element. Let's see, how's that? So yeah, right now the parent stretches all the way to the width, but once we do grid, it's gonna position itself. So let's work on the overlay, because we want to move the text out of its own space on the image. So that would be position absolute. Bottom 0, we want it to be at the bottom, left 0, maybe also right 0. So this can go 100%. And now let's do grid for our, oops, sorry if I'm scrolling this too much, but I kind of want to center the code as I'm typing so that it's on the center of the screen, not at the bottom. So sometimes some of the stuff covers it, but let me know which one you guys prefer. So this would be display grid, and then grid template column. So we are gonna have two FR that takes the first one would take the size of the two, and then one FR for the other one, and then So this would be in terms of width. Now let's do in terms of like on the horizontal vertical scale what happens. So blogs container first child. This would be the only, like the other two would take the same. And before we do that, let's see how this looks. So this is the 2FR because we did, as you can see, this takes the 2 of the third, and then the remaining 1FR is this one. Now let's do grid row. Okay, now so we have it then positioned, but the issue is that the text, because these ones have less space, text is overflowing. Let's prevent that and have only the one line of text, but we don't need any HTML updates or JavaScript. We can just do this using CSS. Isn't that cool? And image card container, so we're gonna target the second child paragraph. And then the third child. So if we say white space, no wrap, and then overflow hidden, that would prevent showing text showing, and then text overflow, if we do ellipsis, it's gonna show like 3 dots at the end of the text, which is what we want. We just don't want to like cut the text. So yeah, this is, you know, how it looks like. Now let's add some gaps in between these. Also, this doesn't stretch out for the full height, and fix that. Also, some cornered borders. Okay, so image card overlay, that should have, not the image wrapper. Actually, I did do hide 100%, but I have a typo in here. Okay, that's weird. So that fixes that, and let's add the border radius 10 pixels, and for wherever we have gap, let's add a small gap. Okay, that's better. So it would be for the image card overlay. And one important thing also, that when we have an image and text over, we need to apply an overlay, like color overlay on the image, so the text is visible and there's enough contrast. So just because we set image, we didn't set background image URL in CSS. If we've done that, we can use color blend mode, I believe the property. But the way we can do it now is using like the before element that's gonna, we're gonna set a background to it. So image wrapper, and then this like before. So the empty content absolute top left 100%, it creates like a block, and then background color, this which can be like modified, and let's see. So as you can see, like darken the image, the text is readable, and it looks way cleaner. Now let's create a footer for our website. That would be components, new file. And let's have a class name, footer container. Footer row, maybe here we can place this like all rights reserved text, and let's add that in here on the. So the difference from this to other, let's open this on the right, maybe close this one out. Difference with other containers is that this is going to take like a full width. So width 100%, and let's do display flags also. Footer row, let's name this something else, maybe. So footer container, display flags with 100%, and then align items. Center, justify content, center. Let's see how that is. And then let's also add background color, the darker one that we use. Yep, that's the one. Now moving on to building mobile menu. First for this, we're gonna import at the top icon from the assets folder for the menu. This would be like a 3-line burger icon that's very common in websites for mobile menu especially, and we're gonna place it below our wallet button. So let's create button itself, and then inside the button, let's do menu icon, and class name of this button, let's give it hamburger. So in the CSS file, we're gonna modify, add some styling to it. So let's start with hamburger SVG, and then set the width and height of it. So this SVG is like, square ratio, so the width and height has to be the same. Also for the background color, because this hamburger is actually button, so we have some default styling. So let's just clear out all those styling, border none, padding 0. And last, for the path, I think the file that I have SVG is just has no color, so let's fill it with white, and this is how it looks like. Next, we'll hide this button on like desktop menu and just show it on the mobile. So let's go ahead in the header container, that is where inside which this button is placed. And also same way that we want to, on the mobile menu, mobile view, hide the menu and the other links. So let's create a media query for the mobile. So max width 768 is for small screens. And let's target header container and the menu that contains our list of the links, which you can see on the left side. And also wallet button, because we're going to place that button inside also the overlay menu. So display of these two would be none. Let's check to make sure it works, so we're not able to see them anymore. Great, and then we can update the styling of this so it stretches out. So justify content instead of center for header container. Now it's going to be in between, so that logo is on the left side and then the menu icon is on the right side. Justify content, space between. Great. Okay, so that's how it is. Now we want to also set the state to track if the menu is open or closed. So React useStateHook is expanded, then set is expanded. By default, the menu would be closed, so we set this to false. And then we create a function toggle expanded. So we take the previous state of expanded and then set our current expanded to opposite what it was previously. And then we're going to use this button, use this function inside our button that we created for the hamburger. So toggle expanded, let's pass that as props. And let's do the styling now to hide the hamburger button on larger screen. So this would be opposite of the mobile screen, that a mobile media query that we created. In this case, we're targeting minimum width 768 and then hamburger display none. Let's make sure it works. And yep. Now we want to move on to the overlay, so the area that gets displayed when menu is open on the mobile. So if is expanded is true, then we will display this div, so menu overlay, and inside we wrap our menu links that we already had created, and we add this enter app because on the desktop it's a separate button. And let's save this, let's make sure it works. So we set the height and the styling now for the menu overlay. So let's move this actually outside of header container, because header container is flex, and then we don't want, if it's open, then it's gonna mess up with the other elements, gonna move to the side. So let's separate it and do some styling. So the styling position would be, that's why we set the height of header container to 78 pixels, because now we're gonna set our menu overlays position to from the top to like 70 pixels. So display of the links first would be flex, width would be 100%, and then we're gonna center all the items, like all the links. Now we can do menu overlay. So as I mentioned, position of this would be absolute, and then from the top it would be 70 pixels. So we have that header and the menu icon first, and below from left would be 0, and flex direction, that would go for menu links because we want to stack up the links one below each other. Width of this would be also 100%. As for the height would be the whole screen except what we have at the top, so the logo and the icon button. Let's set background color same as the body, and for the border top, let's set it to 1 pixel just to separate it and see how it looks like. So this is it. Now making one final adjustments, mostly to the main containers that we have on the website, and most of them that have a flex direction set as a row, we're gonna set it as column. So I'm gonna do it right here in the CSS, and that would be it for this tutorial. Before we see the final result of the website, don't forget to try out Nordpass today at nordpass.com and use Web Decoded for the free 3-month free trial to protect your digital assets, to securely store your passwords, and also easily share it with your team members. And now time for our demo. So this is our website and it's on the mobile screen. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and learned something new, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.